All right, so where do we begin? Well, today, employee engagement is at an all-time low. By some estimates, 87% of employees worldwide are unengaged. The business press tends to define it, engaged employees, as those who feel passionate about their jobs, are committed to the organization, and put in discretionary work in doing their jobs. And in today's knowledge-driven economy, keeping employees engaged is important now more than ever for getting the most done and getting the most out of your workforce. But deepening this employee engagement is actually really hard to do. But we think it's a really important problem worth solving. You see that companies with engaged employees versus none have a 2.5 times earning per share difference. And there's very high correlation between engaged employees and retention of employees. So I think most people know the costs of employee attrition. So it's really a problem worth solving. And a key part to that solution is your communications tools. Many organizations today have employees distributed across the globe, across time zones, but they all need to work together on a shared mission. And increasingly connected deskless and frontline workers, they've got mobile phones in their pockets, they're part of this experience, but they don't have the time to manage an email inbox, or they can't be getting interrupted with a beeping phone while they're in front of customers, for example. But it's still absolutely critical to keep them engaged in the company mission. And then when you talk to leaders, a couple of really clear things come through. First of all, they want to lead, they want to get their word out, but they also want feedback. They want to understand the impact they're having. They want to understand how people are responding, what the sentiments are, but they struggle with the right tools to do this. They all send out the big blanket emails, but are frustrated that nobody replies to them. That's sort of one thing we hear from leaders. And then the other, just generally, is they want people to work as productively as possible. They want best practices shared. They want information to get out of the traditional silos that form in organizations behind access control lists or in people's inboxes. And so they're looking for ways to solve that. So enter Currents. I think most of you probably heard about it yesterday. We're pleased to announce Currents as the newest member of the G Suite family. It's going to be included with the basic SKU and higher of G Suite. You can request to be in the beta by email now. I'll show the address at the end, and it will be in general availability by the end of the year. Currents is the new name for the reimagined and redesigned enterprise version of Google+, as we've now shut down the consumer version. Currents is focused squarely on solving the problems that I've been talking about, and it's all about enabling organizations to connect knowledge, ideas, and people at scale. I'm going to take the next few minutes to walk you through the key benefits for Currents and with different types of users in today's organizations. And after that, we'll have the team come up and do a demo, and then we'll talk to some customers. All right, so if you're a leader at a 10-person company, you don't really worry about employee engagement. You're probably sitting in the same room. There's a lot of tools that can work for that. And the same when you're at a 100-person organization. But when you get to a certain size and a certain level of distribution, you just need better tools. Currents aims to engage leaders and employees by giving leaders the tools to do a bunch of things. One is to just create great and compelling content. And as you'll see, we're doing that with subject lines for posts, rich text, drive attachments, so that they can put their best foot forward in their communications. It's also important to be able to highlight content to drive alignment in the organization. And there's two ways you're going to see to do that. One we call Leader Spotlight, and another called Custom Streams. Generally, it's just important to foster open discussion across the enterprise, regardless of hierarchy, and to create quality discussions and evergreen content. One of the key things you're going to hear about is how we're doing routing based on tagging. Users are able to use hashtags in the way they do in products today, like Twitter and Instagram, et cetera. And then people can follow those hashtags in their organization for specific topical areas that are relevant to the organization. And then ultimately, we know leaders want tools to be able to gauge that sentiment that I talked about before, and you'll see some of that as well. And ultimately, with all these things, leaders are able to drive a shared understanding on the important topics and initiatives across their organization. We're going to have Nerina up here shortly, but I wanted to share this quotation. I'll let you read it yourself. But they've been using Currents since November, deployed to the entire organization in January of this year. And they found value in how Currents facilitates meaningful discussion and allows their employees to exchange ideas. She's not shaking her head, so that's good. But leaders are not the only beneficiary when an organization deploys Currents. Currents also enables rank and file employees not in full-time leadership positions. First of all, it's an organizational commons for ideas and discussions across geography, time zones, and information silos. And it gives people an ideal way to interact informally, including with leaders, about company topics. And if they don't think the right folks are included, they can extend the reach of the discussion, say by adding a hashtag and a comment, which then sort of routes it to anybody following that discussion. And we think this is really powerful. And specifically when they're stepping up in their role and they need to actively campaign for some promotion or initiative or something they're doing internally, it gives them a way to promote their work-related content to people beyond their immediate work team. We've got lots of tools to work with your immediate work team, but if you actually want to reach in one of these larger companies to people, say, in your same role but in a different place, or people with shared interests that you've never met before, it's very powerful. And then finally, it gives them it gives them a way to share fun and insightful and inspirational parts of their work lives, which I think builds a sense of belonging, which is important to a lot of companies' cultures. And it does all of this with a post and comment model with an ordered home stream. It can be sorted chronologically. And they see the things they're interested in that they follow so they can make the most out of the time they spend using Currents. We're not trying to trap people there and show them ads. We want them to get in, get value, learn something, and get on with their job and be better at their job. And so ultimately, when you do this, ideas can be exchanged broadly and efficiently in a way not really possible with existing tools today. Oops, there it is. Another quote from ATB. They've been using it since September of last year and deployed to the entire company in October. They've loved how Currents has allowed them to connect ideas and employees, making it easier to engage in discussion across the company. So we'll have people from these companies up here in a moment. The last thing I really wanted to talk to you about, though, is this critical area of content management. Today's work environments are increasingly complex as companies manage global workforces, and these lines between your personal and your work life really blur. Leaders in human resource departments want collaboration, but also want to keep the conversation respectful and professional. Every company is going to solve this in their own way based on their culture, their environment, et cetera. So in Currents, what we've done is we've built tools for them to implement their workplace policies and steer their organization's behavior and discussion in a way that works for them. We call this new role that of the content administrator. And these content administrators are catalysts to shape the discussion, drive engagement, and ultimately shape the desired norms. And so while they can do things like take down posts if there's something offensive, there's lots of ways to handle that, but you can just take it down in Currents. There are also management tools for some of the features I've talked about around tags. You see it there, tags, leaders, and streams. So these are sort of the people out in the field steering, in the organization, steering the discussion and shaping it. And so ultimately, this lets them build a respectful space to shape their culture. So before we go to the demo, I just wanted to recap that Currents enables organizations to connect knowledge, ideas, and people at scale. And we've talked about how leaders can drive alignment and get the pulse from constructive discussions across the organization, how employees can interact informally but efficiently with people outside their teams and leaders and just people they may have never met before to get better at their jobs, and then the importance of this content manager role to catalyze and shape the tone at the company. And so with that, I'm going to invite my team up, and if we could switch to the direct input for the demo here, that would be great. Oh, you can clap. All right. So this is Pam, Alex, and Rahul, and they're going to walk us through a demo. Good. I'm going to step off.
Good. Hey, everyone. Thanks, David. I'd like to introduce you to Pam. Pam is the CEO of GrowCorp, an international retailer that has stores worldwide. Pam has just returned from a trip to Singapore, where GrowCorp has opened its first store in the country, and she'd like to share an update with the entire organization about her trip. So she clicks on Share an Update, types in a post title, and then puts in her message. As Pam types her message, she sees suggested tags, #kudos and #customerlove, which she decides to put as a part of her post. But then she also puts in another hashtag. As she types the keyword hashtag, she sees suggested tags. And suggested tags in Currents is a great way to reduce tag fragmentation in the system. So she goes ahead and she puts in the hashtag wins. Then she goes over to Drive and clicks on the icon, and then she attaches a presentation for the entire organization to see GrowCorp's plans to expand in Asia. And then she goes over to the top right-hand side and clicks the Spotlight button. The Spotlight button allows leaders such as Pam to further highlight their content in Currents. She goes ahead and makes her post.
Let's switch over to Shane. And let me introduce you to Shane, who is the store manager of the new Singapore store that Pam just posted about. So sometime after she made that post, after a long day at the store floor, Shane goes back to his office, and he comes to Currents. And this is where he tries to catch up with the latest, with what's been going around at GrowCorp. So from his home feed, as David mentioned earlier, this is where he can find the latest relevant posts from the people and tags that he's been following, as well as posts from the communities that he's part of. In addition, this is where he gets to find out what are the latest popular posts that people are talking about throughout GrowCorp, as well as recommended posts from leaders, such as the one that Pam just posted right here. Now, Shane decides to take the chance to respond to Pam by acknowledging the great work that Tanner has done together with his marketing organization in the recent launch. Now, by providing signals such as the marketing hashtag, this ensures that Currents will give the visibility of this post to the entire marketing organization. Now, this is a simple yet lightweight and remarkably powerful action that enables Shane to give a loud shout out across the entire organization in a non-disruptive way. In addition to being able to engage in a two-way conversation with leaders like Pam, and really fostering that type of employee engagement that David was referring to earlier.
So switching back to Pam, a few hours later, Pam goes back to her feed and she notices Shane's comment on her post. She scrolls further down her feed and she sees a post that she had made a week ago is getting quite some traction in the organization. Curious as to where that traction is coming from, she clicks on the overflow menu and then selects View Post Analytics. Over here, she's able to see the number of views, comments, likes, and reshares on this post. But what Currents also gives is further a way to get deeper insights for a post author to see where the engagement is coming from. So over here, you see the names of senior leadership from GrowCorp, and next to their names is the percentage of the amount of engagement that has come on that particular post from that leader's organization. So this way, the author is able to get deeper insight into where engagement is coming from, and then they can decide how to change their communication strategy going forward. Pam scrolls further down in her feed, and she sees responses to a poll that she had put out to the company a week ago. And she sees that 401k matching is top of mind for most employees, and polls are a quick way to get feedback on things that leaders would want so that they can take action for things that are important in the organization.
Now, switching back to Shane for another moment, I would like to take this opportunity to show you a couple more ways that Currents connects people and ideas at scale, while also shrinking the distance between employees, as one of our customers aptly described it. So as Shane goes back to his home feed, on the upper left, he sees the trending tags. This is like the digital version of the water cooler, where you're walking down the hallway and you see, what are people talking about? And in this particular case, something that catches Shane's attention is the hashtag vitamins trending tag. This is a topic that his own customers in his Singapore store have been talking about, so he's curious about it. So he goes ahead and clicks on it to drill down to see what are these latest conversations that people are talking about. Before going further, he actually takes this opportunity to follow this particular tag. And in doing so, now, going forward, whenever he comes back to his home feed, he's gonna get the latest on hashtag vitamins. As he scrolls down, one of the things that he notices is actually a recent post by Cassie Teller. Cassie is a purchasing manager from across the world in London. And she's talking about a vitamin line that his own customers have been talking about. So he was really excited about it. And he takes this opportunity to actually respond to Cassie, saying, hey, this is really interesting for my store. Now, this simple action connects these two individuals together from across the world. Now, going forward, whenever Cassie is thinking, wait, what's going on in Asia, she now knows that, hey, Shane's a person who's interested in this particular topic, and vice versa. Shane, going forward, knows that Cassie is the go-to person for this particular product line. Now, before going forward, Shane also stars this particular post so he can refer to it later by simply going to the left menu and the starred menu. And this is very similar to how it works in our other G Suite products like Gmail and Drive. While I have you here, your attention in the left menu, I also wanted to call your attention to the lower right to the custom streams. Out of the box, Current supports some of these custom streams like Spotlight. This is where Shane can come and see what are the latest posts from leaders. But in addition to that, there are additional custom streams that the content administrator at GrowCorp can set up to highlight posts on topics that they want to be front and center in people's mind. So in this example, the administrator set up a display ideas custom stream. So Shane can quickly drill down to see, hey, what's the latest great ideas that people are exchanging about displaying products throughout GrowCorp? So this is a simple and also powerful way that companies like GrowCorp can actually scale their culture.
So I want to introduce you to Peter. Peter is an internal communications manager at GrowCorp. So Peter's role is to help senior leadership at GrowCorp send their message out to the rest of the organization and also ensure that the organization has a shared understanding of where GrowCorp is going. As David mentioned earlier, we are introducing a new role called the content admin with Currents. And the G Suite admin for GrowCorp has designated Peter as the content admin for Currents. So when Peter logs into Currents, he sees the new management tool link in the left-hand side panel. He goes ahead and clicks on it. And then over here, Peter is able to manage tags, leaders, and streams in Currents. With tags, Peter can upload new tags to the system. And what this does is allows Peter to shape the conversation and also reduce tag fragmentation. If there are certain tags that Peter wants to exclude from recommended streams, he can do so, or he can enable them again. Moving on to the leaders panel. Over here, Peter can designate certain users as leaders in the organization. And what this does is gives these leaders access to features such as the Spotlight feature, which they can use to further highlight their content within the organization. And then moving to streams. Streams, as Alex mentioned, are a great way to yet further highlight content within the organization. So over here, Peter notices the announcement stream is not yet activated. He's been working on it. It's ready to go live. So he selects the announcement stream, and then he clicks on the activate button. As you can see here, Peter has chosen to make this stream available to all of GrowCorp. But if he so chose, he could make it available to a subset of the organization using Google Groups, and only those users would see that stream. So he goes and clicks activate, and the stream shows up in the left-hand side panel, ready for use. So that's what we had for the demo. Back to you, David.
Guys, can people hear me? Here you go. Thanks so much, team. That was great. All right, so let's talk to some real customers. I guess I do. Can we go back to the slides, please? Oh, we are on them. All right, so I'd like to introduce Nerina and Michelle from Nielsen and ATV Financial, respectively. As I mentioned earlier, they've both been using the product for many months. I was wondering if we could just go one at a time and have you guys say a little bit about yourself, your company, and your journey so far.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Nerina. At Nielsen, we have over 40,000 employees in 100-plus countries. And Currents has really allowed us to break down those, not just geographical barriers, but also organizational barriers. So regardless of what your title is or what your zip code is, you have the opportunity to engage with leaders in the company, share your ideas, and form communities around something that you're passionate about. And this has really created a culture that is open and engaging. And it's really important for us, especially right now as a company. We're going through a lot of change. We just got a new CEO, and he has been very dedicated to the platform, which has been so important for us. So it helps associates feel more connected with what's going on in the company, but also adds a personal aspect to it. Our CEO has been traveling around the globe. He's been posting to Currents pictures of where he's visited, what he's learned, and it really, makes for a more personal experience for our associates. We've used Currents as a primary form of communication at Nielsen. Kind of trying in an effort to reduce the amount of email that everybody is getting. And the new features around streams have been a game changer for us, really. One of the challenges we had in the past is how do we ensure we're reaching the right people if we're going to use this as a primary tool for communication. And so we find ourselves posting in different communities, trying to ensure that we got to the right audience. And Streams has just completely eliminated the need for that. With the post analytics, we actually now have some feedback as to the engagement that we're getting. So we've been super pleased with the new features, and I'm sure we'll get into some more details.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and maybe before we go to Michelle, I'll just say we didn't really talk about communities today. It still exists in the product. It's something our customers have loved and used in Enterprise Google Plus over many years. It's not going anywhere. It's not absolutely not going anywhere. But they're still very useful for when you want more contained conversations. But so I'll just set that context. But maybe just rewinding a little bit, Michelle, can you tell us about yourself and your company, and maybe an interesting anecdote from your side?
For sure. Thank you, Dave. Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle McCarthy. I am the Technical Advancement Leader at ATB Financial. And ATB Financial is a financial institution in Canada, Alberta specifically, and we serve we serve all customers throughout the province of Alberta. We have about 5,500 employees. And something specific about the team that I work with is that we're responsible for the G Suite proficiency of the organization as well as adoption. And we're also responsible in partnership with other teams within IT of removing or decommissioning our Microsoft products. So we are the team that is really in front of team members, understanding how they're using the products and how they're adopting the products, and in turn, how we're removing the products that we don't longer use in the organization. So with Currents specifically, we adopted G Suite in July of 2017. And what was really important to us was that we were using these tools. And so quickly we adopted Currents, G+ communities in the past. And we're at the point where we have 90% of our employees who actually use Currents about once a month, and then about 65% of employees who are going in at least once a week. So it is a really popular avenue for us to share information throughout the organization, and it's quickly becoming one of our primary methods alongside others to ensure that we're distributing information to all of our team members. So it's something that we can't even imagine not having today. And I would say that specifically with the changes that have been made is that absolutely in the past it was very siloed information that were provided within the communities, whereas a focus for us is to ensure that we're getting the right information to the right people at the right time. And so the tags specifically ensure that it allows us to provide the information that team members may not choose to go to and get themselves. So in the past, we allowed team members to select the communities that they wanted to be involved in, whereas now we can ensure that we're doing it from both perspectives. They have the option to select the information that's relevant to them, and they also now have the option through tagging, getting the information out to everybody that's important to us as an enterprise, as well as what may be important to the division or the department. So absolutely, hands down, it allows a much broader distribution of information across the organization.
Great, thanks. I'm wondering if, and whoever wants to take it first, you could talk a little bit about your deployment experience, how you rolled it out, and specifically how it changed the balance. I know you have a story, Michelle, about sort of de-emphasizing communities and moving more to tags. You're still holding the mic. Do you want to maybe talk about your deployment experience, and then we can go to Nerina on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So something that stands out in my mind in particular is now with the new look and feel is that it's very modernized. So our team members are comfortable with the look and feel, absolutely going from seeing about 4 different articles to going to one. At first the question was, why can't I customize it? Why is it only just one? And that conversation stopped. Like, we didn't hear that for very long over the course of 2 weeks. People just simply got used to it. So something that was easy to adopt is the tagging, because that is something that you do if you are a social media user all the time. So people just naturally started doing it. You just had to say tagging is now available. And that was something that was just naturally adopted by team members. So now I would say everyone is doing it. For even people who weren't used to doing it, that's just something that they see being done, and they're like, well, I want my information that I'm sharing and posting to get out to a broader audience, so I'm going to start tagging as well. And you wanted implementation?
I know you had this story that I love about how you had almost too many communities before and basically decided to retire some of them and replace them tags. I mean, there's still a role, right, for a community sometimes where people want more privacy, but
so we have a lot of communities because what we wanted to achieve was adoption out of the gate. And we certainly did do that because of the fact that it's been less than 2 years that we have had G Suite in our organization. So we had a lot of communities. So and we still do. So it was very open to all employees to be able to leverage that tool, to use it as a social tool alongside using it as an interactive tool to get to know fellow employees from a work perspective, as well as to get the information that they needed to know. So I lost my train of thought. That's terrible.
Well, you were just talking about, tagging in communities.
No, I lost my train of thought. I was too busy looking at the beautiful Pam in the first row.
No, it's great. We'll come back to you if you like.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. How about Nerina? Do you want to talk a little bit about your deployment experience?
Sure. So when we first heard about Currents, wasn't called Currents at the time, but basically what it was is new enterprise features coming to G+. We were super excited. We partnered with some of our key stakeholders in our adoption of the platform, our communications teams. They've always been really passionate about G+. They're the ones that really help us get the buy-in from the leadership and make sure that they understand how to post and when to post and things like that. So the first thing we did was engage them, and we had a few sessions with Google where they shared, what are the features that are coming, and we thought, okay, how do we want to position this to the organization? Initially, we rolled out to a small group of users, what we call our Google gurus. These are users who enjoy testing new features, pre-production features from Google. So we put it out there, and honestly, not a lot of training was required, which I think just speaks to the usability of the product. But we explain, here are streams, and our communications teams helped us identify, what are the streams that we want to start off with. We use Currents a lot for enterprise-wide campaigns and initiatives. And so at the time, I think we were having an initiative going on. It was called My Weekend, and it was basically, hey, tell us what you're doing on the weekend. Let's get to know each other a little bit better. And so we use that hashtag. And I have to say that the feedback that you get from the system, the validation around the hashtags, I'm terrible at creating hashtags. So for me, it's really nice that something gets suggested to me, or at least I have some level of validation that says, hey, yeah, 1,000 other people have used the same hashtag. You're probably on the right track. So we kicked it off with a few, predefined streams, some hashtags to get the campaign going, and really right off the bat, we're like, this is really great. We need to expand this out to the rest of the organization. And so that's what we did. And our communications team have really done a great job of working together to understand, okay, these are the streams we want to put in place. And because these streams now cover, what these 5 other communities used to do, we can retire some of these other communities that were more siloed, like you said. So that was kind of how we rolled it out and going strong.
Great. That was like the perfect segue to my next question about campaigns. Are there specific campaigns? Can you talk about how you've set up streams and the type of campaigns you've done at ATB Financial?
So we, in our streams, have set it up so that we're sharing the most important information and topics. And specifically, what's really important to ATB is wellness. So that is one of the streams specifically that we have really zoned in on to ensure that we're showcasing and sharing any topic around wellness. So anything that is broad to the enterprise is how we have set up our streams. So we don't have very many because it's not about inundating the team with information. It's about being very specific as to what focus you want to draw people's attention to. So when I was listening to Dave speak about how it changes the culture of your organization, it really does, because of the fact that you really want to hone in on what is most important that you want to ensure that all team members are going to be talking about, because it's not just one-way communication. So I'd say it's absolutely, hands down, it has everything to do with ensuring you're sharing your most important information that you want people talking about across the entire enterprise.
Great, thank you. I thought we could maybe pivot a little bit to some of the softer stuff around culture and innovation and things like that, and if you've noticed a change from sort of before you were using this product to now in terms of how people interact.
Sure. For us, I really believe that Currents has created this safe place where people can share their ideas. And for us, it's really about making connections across the organization because we are so spread out all over the globe. Somebody that has an idea or wants to, share something can now go to Currents, put it out there, add a couple hashtags that, maybe will connect them with the right audience. And that's something, if you think about trying to do that in more traditional forms of communication through email or asking this person if they know that person, it's just a much more efficient way to connect people across the organization. And occasionally there's a healthy level of debate that happens around certain topics. That's also great for innovation. But certainly we have seen teams connecting, and a lot of times it's things that aren't related to necessarily their day-to-day job, right? It's something that they're passionate about or something they've read out in the industry that they have opinions on. And what's great about it is because we do have leaders in the organization that engage with these types of posts. I feel like associates really feel that they're being heard. So that's one example.
Okay, great.
I would have to echo everything that Nerina was saying. It absolutely does allow for people to hear from their leaders a lot more than what they had in the past and have interactions with them because your leaders may not all be in the same place. And you interact with leaders that are not necessarily within your department or your division. So I can't say it any better than what Nerina has.
Great. Yeah, I think I remember an anecdote from ETB about, tell me if I'm mischaracterizing this, but basically it's a place to be yourself, sort of separate from the hierarchy, and I think the guy said, just don't be a dork. I forget who it was, but so we have tools to take down posts if someone is being a dork. But and in fact, one thing we learned on the product side from working with ATB is there were times when leaders wanted to be leaders and have their stuff highlighted, and there were times when they just wanted to be like a regular person. And that's actually, we took that feedback, and that's why we've added this spotlight feature that makes it optional for the person, because sometimes leaders want to be kind of regular people too and not have their weekend barbecue post be at the top of everybody's stream.
Yeah, it absolutely humanizes everyone.
Yeah.
So I feel as though I'm really fortunate because it has certainly, it fits in well with our culture. So it is a way of ensuring that everyone really feels connected to each other, because that's one of the things that we really focus on. And of course, this type of culture doesn't occur overnight. So team members are becoming more and more comfortable just simply being themselves in their posts and not being afraid to post. And it is because of the fact that leaders are leading by example within it.
Got it.
I would just add that, for us, we did do a little bit of training up front for those that sought it out. 'Cause I think it's important to remember sometimes that not everybody grew up using social media, or if they did, it was a lot of times in their personal lives. And so sometimes there's some anxiety around, well, how do I do this in a corporate environment? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? And for us, it was really simple. It was, putting out a few examples of, hey, here are some things that you can post about, and, helping them to feel more comfortable in doing that. But I think you're right, so much of that just happens by leaders leading by example and people seeing that and then kind of learning the landscape. But I do think it's important to remember that not everybody is going to feel ready to jump right in, and what are the things that you can do to kind of help ease them into it.
Great. I have one more question, and then we can go to some Q&A from the audience. I've got a bunch of Dory questions here. I wanted to ask specifically about the knowledge that people take away from it in doing their jobs, and if there's examples of sort of specific actionable things. I mean, there's one customer that comes to mind at a retailer this isn't either of you guys, but just as an example of where they actually were able to do a product recall on some damaged food item pretty quickly because someone took a picture of it, posted it, and it just got handled like much quicker than it would have in the old way. Are there other examples of places where this method of connection and communication made a difference in the business in a more day-to-day way?
One that I can think of offhand is we have, today it's a community, I think it actually probably needs to transition to a stream, but we have a place for people that are interested in using actually Google App Maker and app scripts. And my team, we're a pretty small team that manages the adoption of G Suite, and we can't always help everybody, create these apps that they want to. So there's a group of people who have kind of raised their hand and said, hey, I'm interested in doing this. And we've been able to make connections between somebody that needs help developing an app script or an app maker with these other volunteers. And, in those cases, we have seen actually that these teams are able to develop those products because they made that connection through the community. We also use Currents. I can't remember if I keep referring to it as G+, but
You
I'm going
did
to
once
pretend
or
like
twice,
I keep
but it's
saying
good. Say Currents.
Okay, it's going to take some time. But we do have all of our features that we release through G Suite are communicated through Currents, and we kind of capture feedback from associates that way that we can bring back either to adjust our change management plans or actually bring back to Google as something that we're hearing from the enterprise. So a couple examples of how Currents has helped us actually get projects done, and also where we are able to capture feedback that then we can share with the vendors or whoever it might be to improve.
Got it.
I would say that our journey has been exactly the same. We absolutely use it for day-to-day support. So we have the different communities set up for day-to-day support. And one of the most important communities that I would love to brag about a little bit is the G Suite update community, as well as asking for feedback, as well as any questions that you have. So that is one of the forums that we use to be able to provide insights about any changes going on with Google, and then allow team members to ask questions back, whether it's about the update or anything else. We have one of our larger teams actually that uses it as a supplement. So as a supplement to their primary source of sharing communication or their primary channel, and it's quickly becoming very, very popular. So our retail financial services team, which are all the branches, they use that for any questions that a team member may have. So they just expect that the timing in which they'll get a response back may be longer than what they get it back in chat.
Yeah.
So it is used every single day, and that is why you see our adoption rate so high and so many people going into it regularly.
Okay. I'm going to go to Q&A now. If you guys would stay up, that would be great, just in case there's a way you address it. But please give a hand to our panelists. I really appreciate it.